it's going so long. I even brought notes. Here's the thing, it's like on the top of this notes, I've got cheater written here. Yeah, because here's the thing, it's like, I've been like mulling over this thing for like a month because, I don't know, earlier this month I went and saw this movie that like put me in this really weird place that made me remember exactly what I was like at 17, which is kind of a horrible person. But it reminds me, like there were people in my friend circle, and one of these people, like in the early 90s, I had learned that he had died. And I was like, at the time, I kind of blocked that out. I hadn't really thought about it for a really, really long time. And so this movie had made me think back on what happened when I was 17, like as far as who I was and what I did. And the thing is like 17 was the first time that I ever tried to seduce a boy from my school. And he was 18, and it was this boy. His name was Tommy. And he was an interesting character in that, you know, living in this kind of rednecky Scottsburg, Indiana, he was really, really gay. And he was very effeminate. He had the really cut short Billy Idol blonde hair, always tan, always very smooth. He always wore the best MTV fashions, which means the worst fashion. But he was always fascinating to me because, you know, being really closeted at that age, somebody who could not at all hide who they were, I thought that they might know more about themselves than I did. And he was part of our friend circle. I mean, the thing was, what was really big when I was growing up is, well, I was kind of commodity at the time, which is kind of silly. We had a house out in the country. We had an indoor pool. We had almost 100% unaccounted for alcohol. My parents were never home, never. It was basically like my entire junior year, there was like no supervision. I had no idea how I even graduated high school. But he ended up being a friend of a friend. And so all the friends would come over, and since he wasn't really a nerd, he really didn't play D&D like we did. I guess that's what really saved me. I was more of a nerd than a crazy party gay, so I guess that worked out. But the thing was, is like, you know, he liked movies, we all liked to swim, and we would swim all the time, like the whole group of us. And it was a great time. And, you know, the thing was, is for me, I was always fixated on him for, you know, some reason. We'd be like in the shower in the pool, and the sun would be coming down through the windows, and he'd be coming up out of the water, and he'd be brushing his hair back and like coming out of everything, and he would look at me with like the water drops on his eyelashes and his blue eyes, and I was just transfixed. And the thing was, is he wasn't really super handsome, and I wasn't completely enthralled with him, but you know, he was 18, and this skinny average kid, just like me. And I wanted him, so it made him impossibly beautiful. So, you know, the thing was, is like, as the summer went along, I realized that I really wanted to try to seduce him. And, you know, being at 17, seduction is dumb. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And especially for me, because, you know, I had seduced many a woman in high school at 17, which just means I was just there. Because, because I was the worst. It'd be like, love me. And, you know, it just doesn't work that way in real life, but it did for me because I wasn't pressured to try. I wasn't like into any of these girls. I was just there, and I was like, whatever happened, happened. And I was okay with that. So in my mind, this is what seduction meant. So as the summer went along, like I finally, like, I don't know, we got to be the point where we weren't just hanging out with just, you know, our friends. It was he and I hanging out. We would watch movies at the house, and then I found out that he had a Laserdisc player, and he had Star Wars, and he also had Xanadu. It's really not any better on digital. Yeah. But in addition to the other movies, we discovered something that would make a big difference to us further down the line, and that was porn. Because he was 18, he could rent porn, and so we ended up watching porn movies in his bedroom with the door locked. And we discovered this porn star named Francois Papillon. We named him Muscles. And we would basically be in his locker room, laying flat on the bed with our arms like this, looking out at the movie, not moving, with the bed kind of weighing us down, trying to get close to each other, like, come on, boys, relax, enjoy. And I could feel the heat of his body next to me. And it was just so filthy and salacious and just dirty, and because we watched this guy fuck over and over again. And that was all we did in that room. It was so chaste and so stupidly innocent. I mean, I hate that memory, but I love it because, I look back at that fondly, and it's silly, I suppose. But after all this had happened, I'm going to seduce this guy. I'm going to do this. So I made plans. I turned the heat up I turned the heat on our pool, really high. It was September-ish, so it was cold. So it was cold outside. Inside was warm and steamy, and the lights were kind of low. It's just this is going to happen. I had Duran Duran on. I brought out extra towels. I was thinking ahead. I mean, the thing was, even if I got him, I had no fucking clue what to actually do with him. It certainly wasn't what Francois Papillon was doing. But, so we're at the end of the pool. The pool is here. There's steam rolling off of it. It's this beautiful, romantic night. And we're both wearing jackets. And he's got this long overcoat. and so, I'm actually thinking, it's this is gonna happen, it's gonna happen. So he's standing here he is, and he's got his hands in his pockets, and he's got his open coat, and I step forward into the middle of it, and I look up at him, and I say, are you gonna kiss me? Are we gonna kiss here? Are you gonna talk to me? Are we gonna talk about who we are? Are we gonna talk about what we feel or anything? Are we both alone? Do you get me? Do you understand? You're not saying anything. Because you're killing me here, because I'm dying, because I have to know, I have to have some knowledge of who we are. And I said all of these things in my head. I said, do you want to go swimming? And he's like, no, not really. It's are you sure? It'd be fun. We're not going to swim anymore this summer. Yeah, but it's just too cold. Okay. So we sat at the end of the pool in our coats, sweating. Me in my members only jacket. I fucking had one, okay? and nothing happened. Because somehow in my brain I thought that a person who was just 18 at that time would know more about himself or understand himself any more than I did. I look back at it and I think, it could have happened. Because I was standing there on this cliff that I could have jumped over by just kissing him right then. And I didn't do it. And it's not a problem. But I didn't forgive myself for a really, really long time. Not until I saw this movie that made me think of myself at 17 and remember, I was just a kid. I was just a kid. And the thing was, I thought all this stuff was going to kill me. I was going to die. And I felt really bad. And through all this that had happened to me, I thought, I got to find out what happened to him. I need to find out how he died or why he died. Because, in my mind, in the early 90s, I'm thinking HIV is basically a death sentence. So I figured it was something like that. So I try to look it up, and I can find absolutely nothing. And I'm very frustrated. And so I finally go back to one of those terrible friends that I had when I was terrible in high school and asked, whatever happened to him? And she was like, I don't know, he's still alive. He's living in Scottsburg. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah. Well, he had this weird thing with steroids. He was like he was working out of something, he had a heart problem, and everybody thought he died, but he's alive, he's living in Scottsboro. I was like, what the fuck? So ultimately, the story was the fact that this was this boy who was ultimately really kind and really sweet, and he was never angry, and he was never cruel, even though he'd taken far more beatings than I did in high school because he was so clearly gay. But, I have that memory of him. And the story was not just about how I didn't die, but he didn't die either.